Hello, hello. Welcome back to the show. I am so happy that you are here. Last week, we talked about the number one thing you need to do before you make a New Year's resolution or set any goals for your year. And this week, we're talking about a practice that is going to help you whether or not you set any goals. We're talking about the practice of choosing a word of the year. One word to guide you for the next 365 days. How do you choose one word? Well, let's talk about it inside today's show. You, my friend, were made for more. More than the managing of schedules, keeping up with kiddos, and holding down the home front. Welcome to the Milspouse Mastermind Show, the podcast that empowers you to get unstuck and craft a life with more meaning and less overwhelm. I'm your host, Christine, seasoned military spouse, mom of 3, and your guide to designing a life you love and growing a purpose-fueled business as a military spouse. I believe you have something valuable to offer, and when you pursue the things that light your heart on fire, you trade frustration for fulfillment and isolation for a life of impact. It's time to discover who you are meant to be, because together we can change the world. What if this year could be your best year yet? Not because you got the location, the assignment you were hoping for, the dream job, you had the baby, or got the bucket list experience, but because you chose to invest in yourself and create a life with more meaning and less overwhelm. It's absolutely possible, and it starts with setting your intentions and goals for the year. I have a specific planning process that I go through every single year, and I'm inviting you into the journey with me. I'll be going live inside our Facebook community on Wednesday, January 17th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time to share my process with you. I'll have a free workbook for you to download so you can walk through this together with me so that you can get the clarity that you need and set yourself up for a year of stepping into and living with purpose. If you want to get to the end of 2024 feeling filled, fueled, and full of joy, you are not going to want to miss this workshop. Instead of creating a New Year's resolution that you will never keep, let's walk through intentionally planning our year out together. So mark your calendars, and I will see you inside our Facebook community on January 17th. Back in mid-January, I shared that I am doing a few things to help me prevent burnout and create a little more time and space in my schedule. And one of those things is re-airing valuable episodes from the podcast archive. And this is one of those episodes. It originally aired 2 years ago. So if you hear references to 2021, 2022, that is why. But the content still is so good and so applicable, especially to this time of year. So I know that you and I would benefit from hearing this episode again. It is a new year and the perfect time for us to decide on a word to guide us through the year. So whether you are someone that sets goals, that creates resolutions or not, this is something very tangible and practical, a process that you can use that can make a huge difference in your life. All right, let's talk about how to find your word of the year. How do I find my word of the year? Well, first of all, why do you need a word of the year? I started doing this probably roughly 3-4 years ago, but this has been really valuable because it allows you to kind of condense everything that you are thinking about for the year, how you want to grow, and boil it down to a single word. This word that's going to guide you for the next 365 days. It's a word that is so helpful because it gives us a framework to make decisions. Does this activity, does this event prioritize my word of the year? Does this help me with this specific goal? Am I moving towards this thing that I have said is really important to me this year, that really matters? So it's giving us this framework for how we're building our life, how we're spending our time, and ultimately who we're becoming. So how do we do that? We hear about people that have these words of a year, but perhaps you're someone that has never done this process before, and you're wondering, well, how did you boil this down to a very specific word? The most important part of this process is finding a word that resonates with where you are right now and how you want to grow. That could be something like, my word of the year is growth, and I'm going to spend my entire year focused on things that help me grow. Or maybe, for another example, my word of the year is boldness, and I want to choose actions and activities that force me outside my comfort zone and that help me show up as a bolder version of myself. And so I'm making decisions and choosing how I'm going to set up my calendar based on my word of the year. In my own life, I started this process back in 2019, I think. My word of the year that year was intentionality, because I wanted to be more intentional about my time. I tend to like to fly by the seat of my pants, and I realized that if I really wanted to grow into the person that I am supposed to be and do the things that I feel called to do, I can't just let my schedule go. I can't just say, oh, let's see what happens today. I need to be intentional with my time. I had 3 babies at the time. I had a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a newborn, and life just felt chaotic. And I knew I needed to make my word of the year that year intentionality. So that was 2019. 2020 came along, and my 2020 word of the year was becoming, because I really was focused on my growth goals and who I wanted to be, and I really wanted to live into this idea of becoming. I had all of these grand plans, and I had a whole list of how I was going to move the needle mentally, spiritually, physically, relationally, how I was going to actually make more progress on my growth goal journey. And then COVID happened. So I also want to say that sometimes once we arrive at our word of the year and we have all these plans, well, it doesn't always work out the way we intend, and we have to be flexible with that. 2020 threw a bunch of stuff at me that I was unprepared for. I was unprepared for the battle with anxiety, like all of the moving pieces that come with an overseas move in the middle of a pandemic, and really just the importance of our mindset and how we show up. So I didn't necessarily accomplish all of my goals for 2020. There are seasons of life where our priorities just have to shift, and we won't grow the same way that we would if we were able to be consistent with what we were doing, if there weren't all these outside forces throwing us off our game. We can still go back to what matters most, to prioritizing our word of the year and making progress, even if it doesn't look like the progress we gibber to make. Now, let's talk moving from 2020 to 2021. My 2021 word of the year was rest. And it's funny because when I talk about how we're going to help you determine your word of the year, this was not the word of the year I wanted. I had in my head that it was going to be something related to accomplishment, or, what I was going to do, right? I wanted it to be about the doing, and I just knew that my word of the year needed to be rest. I realized throughout this year that rest has to be the foundation for everything I do. If I am not regularly taking the time and space to rest, everything falls apart, and all of my other habits come from having that foundation of rest. And so it was an important lesson for me to learn. And really, because I prioritized rest this year, I was able to learn the thing that I was meant to learn this year. Now, as we move into 2022 and my word of the year changes, then the goal for me is to really hold on to what I learned about rest through taking intentional time to rest in 2021, through prioritizing that above all else, and still learning how to prioritize that and build a foundation on rest, even though that's not my main focus. But at the end, I'll share my 2022 word of the year. But let me talk you through the process first that talks about how we arrive at this word of the year. And it's going to be different. It's going to look a little different for each person. So there's not like a hard and fast rule of how you get there. But I thought, let me give you some guideposts to help you get you started on this journey. And the first thing you can do is reflect on your past year. Sit down with your calendar or your planner or whatever you use to take notes on this last year. And if you didn't take any notes or write anything down anywhere, I don't know how you're living without some kind of calendar, but try to reflect on this past year. What did you accomplish? What happened? How did you handle life? How did you grow? What have you learned? Just take some time to reflect on the past year. And then number 2 is to focus on the coming year. Who you want to be, how you want to show up, what growth goals you are setting in your own life. What is it that you are wanting to accomplish in the next year? Now, if you combined all of your reflections on the past year and all of what you want to do, what you hope to accomplish, who you hope to be in the coming year, are there themes that emerge out of this process? So we're going to look at what keeps coming up. Is there a particular word or phrase that keeps coming to the surface? Is there a theme that sticks out? So hopefully, as you reflect and as you assess where you've come and as you set goals for the year, you'll see some themes start to emerge. And, 1 or 2 of those may stick out to you, and I want you to just sit with it for a few minutes. I want you to say, does this feel right? Pray about it. Listen to your intuition and just sit with it for a period of time. It doesn't have to be a long time, but I think it's always good to just hold something loosely until you have time to sit with it, to reflect on it, to pray about it, to see if that feels right. And then the last thing I would say is, let's say that you've had a theme emerge and you've prayed about it, you've thought about it, you're like, yes, this feels right. Then you also just want to make sure that this word is right for you. Not that it sounds good or it sounds exciting to you or it's something that you want or it's something that somebody else said was their word of the year. You have to make sure that it feels right for you in this season. Now, once you have that word of the year, then you're going to use this as a guidepost through your year. You're going to use it to help you make decisions about your time and your schedule and your focus. This is going to be what you focus on through the year. So I would absolutely love to know, do you have a word of the year? Yes or no? If you do, if you don't, I would love for you to talk about it. Talk about how you arrived at your word of the year and share that with us in the Facebook group. If you're not part of our Facebook community, please come join us, hanging out in there, sharing our successes, our failures, our wins, our challenge points, and just helping each other on this journey to becoming purpose-driven military spouses. So the easiest way to do that is just go to milspousemastermind.com/community. It'll take you directly to the link so you can join the group. And I would love to hear about your word of the year. Now, I promised you at the beginning of this episode that I would share my 2022 word of the year with you. And it is joy. When I went to reflect on all of my last year and everything that I walked through, what I accomplished, what I struggled with, and it really was in this place of, yes, I made progress, but throughout that, I felt discouraged, like I should be making more progress, I should be doing more, accomplishing more, and just fighting this internal battle of all of the resistance and these attacks from the enemy and just my self-doubt and really realizing that I was in this place of feeling defeated more than I was walking in joy. And I want for all of us to live in this place of feeling filled, fueled, and full of joy. And so that's going to be my word of the year in 2022. Really learning to live in this place of joy, in finding joy in the mundane, learning to find joy in the journey, and just living and walking in and out of this place of joy. So if you're still in need of a word of the year and that is speaking to your heart, maybe you should consider that as your word of the year. But I hope that as I grow in my own joy journey, I can share more of that joy with you and that we can each walk towards this place of learning to live filled, fueled, and full of joy. Hey friend, before you go, the Milspouse Mastermind community is here to help you thrive as a military spouse. Figure out what lights your heart on fire and equip you to create a life of impact. You can have an incredible impact simply by heading over to iTunes to subscribe and leave a review. And if today's episode was meaningful to you, I know it will be for others too. Spread the word by taking a screenshot of this episode and share it to your stories so we can continue to reach more people, change more lives, and shift the way that military spouses look at life. Because we are better together, and together we can change the world. Let's do it.